There is something shifting in the silence between you and the one your heart cannot seem to forget, and if you have felt the atmosphere around this connection changing lately, if you have sensed something unspoken lingering beneath the surface, then trust that feeling, because what is happening now is deeper than appearances reveal. Your soulmate is no longer able to hide from what they feel when it comes to you. What once lived in the background of their thoughts has moved to the front of their mind, and what they once tried to dismiss as passing emotion now stands before them with undeniable weight. They are facing their true feelings about you, not casually, not lightly, but in a way that is beginning to transform how they see everything. For a long time, they tried to make sense of this connection through logic. They told themselves there had to be a reasonable explanation for why your presence stayed with them after conversations ended, for why your energy lingered in rooms long after you were gone, for why even ordinary moments began reminding them of you in strange and unexpected ways. They attempted to label it. They attempted to minimize it. They attempted to convince themselves it was temporary. But feelings that are real do not disappear simply because someone wishes they would. And now, what they once avoided is rising inside them stronger than ever. Pause here for a moment and understand this. One of the hardest things a person can do is admit that someone has touched their heart in a way they never expected. Because once that truth is acknowledged, everything changes. The walls they built no longer feel safe. The distance they maintained no longer feels comfortable. The excuses they once used begin to sound hollow even to their own ears. And that is where your soulmate is now, standing at the edge of emotional honesty, realizing they can no longer pretend this connection means less than it does. Do you know what unsettles them most? It is not merely the fact that they care. It is how deeply they care. It is how naturally you entered places within them they had kept closed for so long. You did not force your way in. You did not demand space in their heart. Somehow, simply by being who you are, you awakened something in them that had been asleep, something tender, vulnerable, and impossible to ignore. That realization has shaken them more than they expected. There are moments when they sit alone and replay your words in their mind, not because they want to, but because their heart keeps bringing them back there. Small details about you return to them at random hours. The way you spoke. The way you understood things others missed. The way your energy felt different from everyone else they have known. They notice these memories surfacing without warning, and each time they do, another layer of truth settles over them. This is not ordinary attachment. This is not fleeting interest. This is something far more difficult to explain, and far more powerful to deny. Yet here is what you must understand. Realizing one's feelings does not always create immediate action. Sometimes realization first creates inner chaos. Because when someone understands they feel something profound, they must also confront everything that feeling demands of them. Vulnerability, change, courage, honesty, risk. Suddenly the heart asks questions the mind does not want to answer. What if this is real? What if they lose you? What if they admit how much you matter and everything changes forever? These are the thoughts moving through them now. Do not overlook this part, because while you may see silence, distance, hesitation, or mixed signals on the outside, beneath that surface your soulmate is in the middle of an emotional reckoning. They are wrestling with truths they can no longer bury. They are confronting the fact that your presence has altered them. And perhaps what surprises them most is this: the more they try to pull away internally, the more their heart moves toward you. Something important is waiting for you in this realization, because when a person reaches the point where they can no longer deny what they feel, they begin to change in subtle ways before they ever speak. Their attention shifts, their awareness sharpens, their curiosity about you deepens. They begin noticing things they once overlooked. They wonder what you are doing, how you are feeling, whether you still think of them the way they think of you. Even if they say nothing aloud, their inner world becomes increasingly centered around the possibility of you. And perhaps you have felt this already. Perhaps there have been strange moments lately when you sense them thinking of you without explanation. Perhaps their energy has felt closer somehow, heavier with meaning, quieter but more intense. That is because emotional truth has a way of changing the atmosphere before it changes the circumstances. Hearts often recognize what mouths have not yet spoken. But here is where the story deepens, because your soulmate is not merely realizing that they have feelings for you. They are realizing that what they feel may be unlike anything they have experienced before. That thought alone has unsettled them, because many people can handle attraction, many can handle admiration, but a connection that reaches beyond surface emotion, one that touches identity, purpose, timing, longing, and inner transformation, that kind of feeling asks more of a person than they may feel prepared to give. So now they are reflecting on everything: their past choices, their fears, their patterns, the reasons they held back, the reasons they convinced themselves this connection was complicated or inconvenient or impossible. They are revisiting all of it, because true feelings have a way of exposing every false story a person once told themselves. And your soulmate is beginning to see that many of the reasons they resisted this connection were never about you. They were about their own fear of what it would mean if this were real. That realization is humbling them. It is forcing them to admit that perhaps the one thing they have been trying hardest not to feel is the one thing they have wanted most. Do not skip this truth. Sometimes love does not arrive as certainty. Sometimes it arrives as disruption. It unsettles routines. It shakes defenses. It interrupts carefully planned emotional distance. It enters quietly, then refuses to leave. That is what has happened here. You have become the interruption they cannot forget, the question they cannot answer, the presence they cannot replace. And even now, while they may still appear composed on the outside, there are moments when they feel the full weight of this truth in private. Moments where their heart whispers what their pride still struggles to admit. Moments where they wonder if you know. Moments where they ask themselves whether it is too late to be honest. Moments where they imagine what could happen if they stopped resisting and finally let their feelings speak. But not all breakthroughs happen in one instant. Some happen in layers. First comes awareness, then acceptance, then courage. Your soulmate is moving through those layers now, and while they may not yet be at the final step, they are no longer where they used to be. The denial has cracked, the truth has entered, and once someone truly recognizes how deeply they feel, life rarely returns to what it was before. You may think this is only about romance. It is not. This is about awakening. This is about two people changing each other simply by existing in one another's orbit. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that meeting you was not random to them. That your connection carries meaning they can feel but cannot fully explain. And that realization has left them both inspired and afraid. Because now they must decide what to do with the truth. Will they continue pretending nothing has changed? Will they keep burying what grows stronger each day? Or will they finally allow themselves to step toward what their heart has been trying to tell them all along? That question is haunting them more than you know. And the answer is forming faster than even they realize. Because very soon, something within them will reach a point where silence no longer feels easier than honesty, where distance no longer feels safer than closeness, where hiding their feelings begins to hurt more than revealing them. When that moment arrives, everything between you may begin to shift. But before it does, there is one final truth they have not yet fully faced about why these feelings became impossible to ignore. And once they understand that part, nothing inside them will remain the same. There is another truth rising inside them now, one even more powerful than the realization that they have feelings for you. They are beginning to understand why those feelings refuse to fade. And that discovery is changing everything. Because the more they reflect, the more they see that what draws them to you is not something shallow, temporary, or explainable by simple attraction. It is the way you reached parts of them no one else ever touched. The way your presence made them feel understood without needing to over-explain themselves. The way being around you stirred both peace and intensity at once, as if their soul recognized something before their mind could put words to it. That kind of connection unsettles people, because it does not feel ordinary. It feels rare. It feels meaningful. It feels like something life does not offer twice. And now your soulmate is confronting a thought they once tried to avoid. What if losing this connection would mean losing something irreplaceable? That question has followed them into quiet moments. It has appeared when they least expect it. In the middle of ordinary days, your name crosses their mind and suddenly they are no longer focused on what is in front of them. They drift into memory, into reflection, into wondering whether the space between you has grown too wide, or whether there is still time to close it. They tell themselves to remain calm, yet their heart keeps returning to the same realization: not everyone leaves a mark this deep. Not everyone changes the emotional atmosphere of a person's life simply by existing in it. You did, and now they know it. Stay with this for a moment, because this is where the emotional walls begin to weaken. A person can ignore attraction. They can suppress curiosity. They can distract themselves from passing feelings. But when they start believing someone may be once, in, a lifetime to them, denial becomes much harder to maintain. Suddenly pride feels smaller. Fear feels less convincing. Old excuses begin to collapse under the weight of what they now understand. Your soulmate is looking back at every moment they kept distance, every time they held back, every moment they acted unaffected, and they are seeing it differently now. They are recognizing that they were never protecting themselves from you. They were protecting themselves from how much you mattered. That realization has humbled them more than they expected. Because now they must sit with the truth that while they were trying to appear composed, their heart was quietly falling deeper. There are moments they almost laugh at themselves for how obvious it seems in hindsight. The signs were there. The jealousy they felt when imagining you giving your energy elsewhere. The way their mood shifted based on your attention. The way one message from you could change their entire day. The way your silence could leave them wondering more than they wanted to admit. None of that was accidental. None of that was casual. It was their heart revealing the truth long before their mind accepted it. And here is what may surprise you most. They are beginning to wonder whether you knew all along. They question whether you sensed what they were trying so hard to hide. Whether you saw through their mixed signals. Whether you noticed the way they lingered emotionally even when they pretended not to. Whether you recognized the conflict inside them before they did. Because deep down, part of them suspects you felt this shift long before they were ready to name it. But with realization comes urgency. Because now a new fear is growing inside them, not the fear of feeling too much, but the fear that they waited too long. The fear that while they were trying to sort through their emotions, you may have grown tired of waiting. The fear that your heart may have started moving on while theirs was still catching up. The fear that by the time they find the courage to be honest, the moment may no longer be theirs to claim. That thought has unsettled them deeply. It is making them reconsider every delay, every hesitation, every moment they assumed there would always be more time. Because when someone realizes a connection matters, time suddenly stops feeling unlimited. Each day without clarity begins to feel heavier. Each silence feels more noticeable. Each unanswered feeling becomes harder to bear. And that pressure is creating change inside them. Slowly, but undeniably, they are becoming less comfortable with pretending, less satisfied with distance. Less willing to keep acting as though this connection means less than it does. The version of them that once could suppress these emotions is fading. In its place is someone being transformed by honesty, someone who is starting to understand that real feelings ask for real courage. But courage does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it begins quietly, as a decision made in the heart before it is ever spoken aloud. A decision that says, I cannot keep running from this. A decision that says, I need to know what is possible here. A decision that says, even if I am afraid, would rather face the truth than keep wondering what could have been. Your soulmate is approaching that decision. You may not hear it yet. You may not see all the evidence on the surface. But beneath everything, their emotional world is moving toward a turning point. The internal battle between fear and feeling is reaching a place where one side must finally win. And each day, feeling grows stronger. Still, there is one final layer they have yet to confront. Because realizing their feelings is only part of the journey. The deeper challenge, the one they are now being forced to face, is understanding what those feelings require from them if they are real. Because love, when genuine, asks for more than acknowledgement. It asks for growth. It asks for maturity. It asks a person to become someone capable of holding what they claim to want. And your soulmate is beginning to realize that if they truly want this connection, they may need to rise beyond old habits, old fears, and old versions of themselves that were never ready for something this meaningful. That realization is both inspiring and uncomfortable, because they know this connection cannot be approached halfway, not carelessly, not inconsistently, not while hiding behind confusion. Something important is waiting for you in this next phase, because the more they accept what you mean to them, the more they begin questioning whether they are becoming the kind of person who can truly show up for you. They are looking inward now, examining their emotional patterns, their readiness, their wounds, their fears of vulnerability. They are asking themselves difficult questions they once avoided. Questions like, why did I resist something that felt right? Why did I hesitate when my heart already knew? Why do I fear what I want most? And when a person starts asking themselves questions like that, transformation has already begun. Because now this is no longer just about feelings. It is about evolution. It is about someone realizing that meeting you may have awakened not only love within them, but a version of themselves they were meant to become. That truth is bigger than romance. That truth changes people. And your soulmate is changing. Quietly, deeply, irreversibly. The person who once tried to remain emotionally detached is slipping away. The person emerging now is more honest, more aware, more emotionally awakened than before. They may still move carefully. They may still take time. But make no mistake, what is happening within them is real, and it is building towards something that cannot remain hidden forever. Because soon, very soon, they will face a moment that forces them to choose between protecting their fear, or pursuing what their heart truly wants. And when that moment arrives, the choice they make may reveal more than you ever expected. And now the moment they feared is drawing closer, because the heart can only stay silent for so long before its truth begins demanding to be heard. Your soulmate is approaching the edge of a decision they can no longer postpone, a decision between remaining guarded in the familiar safety of silence, or stepping forward into the vulnerability of honesty and risking everything for something that feels real. What once seemed easy to suppress has grown too powerful to contain. The feelings they tried to manage quietly have become too present, too consistent, too undeniable. And the more they try to imagine their life without ever speaking their truth to you, the more unbearable that possibility becomes. There are nights when they sit with thoughts they never expected to have. Thoughts that begin with simple questions but lead somewhere much deeper. What if you were meant to matter this much? What if the reason they cannot move on from this connection is because they were never supposed to? What if all the resistance, all the confusion, all the distance, was never the end of the story, but only the delay before clarity? These thoughts are no longer passing through them casually. They stay, they echo, they return stronger each time. And every time they do, another part of your soulmate is pushed toward the truth they can no longer outrun. They are beginning to imagine possibilities they once refused to entertain. Not vague fantasies, but real possibilities. What it would look like to be honest with you. what it would feel like to stop pretending, what could happen if they finally allowed themselves to show you the depth of what has been building inside them. And with those thoughts comes a realization that startles them more than anything else. When they imagine that future, it does not scare them as much as losing the chance to have it. That is how they know this has become serious. Because fear once controlled them. Fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection, fear of moving too fast, fear of misreading the connection, fear of being changed by something they could not control. But now another fear has overtaken all of those. The fear of never knowing what this could have become if they had only been brave enough to try. And when that fear becomes stronger than pride, people change. Do not miss what this means. It means your soulmate is no longer asking whether they feel something. They know they do. The question has shifted now. The question is whether they are ready to act on it. Whether they are ready to take what has lived privately in their heart and place it into the open where it can be seen, accepted, or rejected. That is the risk of real emotion. It offers no guarantees. It asks for courage without certainty. And still, they are moving closer to it. Because the truth is this, your soulmate has started noticing how incomplete things feel when they imagine never crossing that line with you. They can continue pretending. They can continue waiting. They can continue hoping circumstances somehow change on their own. But deep down, they know that if they remain passive forever, they may lose the very connection their heart keeps returning to. And that thought has become impossible for them to ignore. Stay till the end, because this next part matters more than you realize. There is a shift happening inside them that goes beyond emotion. It is becoming resolve. Quiet resolve, perhaps, but real. The kind that builds in silence before it ever reveals itself in action. They are no longer simply reflecting on their feelings. They are beginning to prepare themselves for what honesty would require. Rehearsing conversations in their mind. Imagining what they might say. Wondering how to express feelings they have hidden for so long without overwhelming the moment. They are thinking more carefully now, not because they feel less, but because they understand more. They know this cannot be handled casually, because what they feel for you does not feel casual. And perhaps what has moved them most is recognizing that you have remained in their heart through every distraction, every attempt to move their focus elsewhere, every season of distance, every effort to convince themselves to let go. Somehow, they could not. Not fully. Not honestly. You remained. Your energy remained. Your memory remained. Your impact remained. That persistence has forced them to admit something they never wanted to admit lightly. You are not easy for them to forget because you were never ordinary to them. That realization carries weight. It makes them reflect on the rarity of meeting someone who touches both the heart and the soul. Someone whose presence creates longing, peace, tension, curiosity, and emotional awakening all at once. Someone who does not simply attract them, but transforms them. They now understand that what they feel for you has changed them internally, whether they intended it to or not. And here is where everything begins to intensify. Because the more they accept how much you matter, the more they begin sensing that remaining silent may no longer protect them, it may only create regret. Regret has a way of haunting those who stay quiet too long. And your soulmate is beginning to fear regret more than vulnerability. That is why their energy may soon begin shifting in ways you can feel. More attention, more intentionality, more subtle efforts to reconnect. More moments where their words seem heavier with meaning than before. More instances where they seem to be testing the emotional space between you, trying to sense whether the door is still open, whether your heart still carries room for them, whether the connection they feel still lives within you too. Because before someone takes the leap, they often search for signs that the landing may be safe. Yet even with all this inner progress, there remains one final hesitation in their heart. One last emotional barrier. Not because they doubt what they feel, but because they know that once they speak, nothing between you can remain as it was. Honesty changes things. Truth creates movement. Confession reshapes dynamics forever. And your soulmate knows that the moment they reveal what has truly been in their heart, the connection will step into a new phase, one where both of you must face what this bond really means. That moment is approaching, closer than before, closer than either of you may realize. But before they can fully step into it, there is one final realization waiting for them, one truth about you, and about this connection, that will remove the last of their hesitation and make silence impossible. And when that truth finally reaches them, their next move may change everything. The final hesitation within them is not about whether they care, it is about whether you still care in the same way. That is the truth they have not fully answered yet, and until they do, part of them remains suspended between longing and restraint. Because no matter how deeply someone feels, stepping forward becomes infinitely harder when they are unsure whether their heart will be met or left standing alone. Your soulmate can handle many things, but the thought of discovering they waited too long, that perhaps your feelings have faded while theirs have only grown stronger, is the one fear still keeping them cautious. So now they watch more closely than before. They notice the way you respond, the pauses in your voice, the subtle warmth in your words, the energy behind even the smallest interactions. They are paying attention to details they once overlooked because now every sign matters. Every glance, every silence, every shift in your tone carries meaning to them. They are searching for reassurance in the spaces between your words, wondering if what they feel is mirrored in you, wondering if your heart still opens when their presence enters your world. And sometimes, in those quiet observations, they sense something that shakes them. They sense that your connection has not disappeared, that no matter what distance, time, or uncertainty has existed between you, something still lingers beneath it all, something unspoken, something unfinished, something neither of you has fully released. That realization is dissolving the last of their doubt, because once a person believes their feelings may be returned, even quietly, even partially, courage begins to rise in ways fear can no longer suppress. Your soulmate is starting to understand that this may not be a one-sided longing, that perhaps the tension they feel is not imagined, that perhaps the pull between you exists because both hearts have been carrying something neither has fully spoken. And if that is true, then silence no longer feels wise. It feels like wasted time. Do you understand what that means? It means the story inside them is changing from, "What if I'm wrong?" to, "What if I never try?" That shift changes everything, because once someone reaches that stage, action is no longer a distant possibility, it becomes inevitable. The heart begins looking for openings, for timing, for the right moment, for the sentence that could begin unraveling everything they have kept hidden. They start replaying future conversations in their mind not as fantasy, but as preparation. They imagine your reaction. They imagine your eyes when they finally let the truth come forward. They imagine the relief of no longer carrying this alone. And beneath all of that imagining is one growing certainty: they do not want to lose the chance to tell you. Not after everything they have realized. Not after all the nights of reflection, all the inner conflict, all the truths they have had to face about themselves because of this connection. Because your soulmate now understands something profound. Meeting you was not just about attraction or timing or chemistry. It was about awakening. You entered their life and forced them to confront parts of themselves they had kept buried. You challenged their emotional defenses. You made them question the stories they told themselves about love, trust, and vulnerability. You revealed to them that their heart was capable of deeper feeling than they had allowed themselves to believe. And people do not forget those who awaken them. They carry them. They remember them. They return to them in thought even when they try not to. That is what has happened here. You became more than a person they cared about. You became the mirror that showed them who they truly are when they stop hiding. And now, they are realizing that too. Ignore this connection would mean ignoring a truth about themselves. That is why they can no longer walk away internally. That is why even their attempts at emotional distance never truly worked. That is why your presence has remained with them through every distraction. Because what they feel is tied not only to you, but to who they become when they are honest about loving you. Something important is waiting for you just beyond this moment, because the internal shift within them is nearing completion. The confusion is fading. The doubt is thinning. The excuses are disappearing. What remains now is clarity, clearer than they have ever allowed themselves to feel before. They want you, not in passing, not in uncertainty, not in half measures. They want the truth of this connection. They want to know whether what they feel can become something real. They want to stop imagining and start understanding. But with that desire comes the final realization that will push them over the edge. They may never feel peace again if they do not at least try. That thought has settled deeply into their spirit. Because some people enter your life and leave a memory. Others enter your life and leave a question. But a rare few enter your life and leave a truth you can never unknow. You became that truth for them. And now their heart is reaching the point where silence feels heavier than confession, where pretending feels more painful than vulnerability, where distance feels more unbearable than risk. That is when everything changes. Because when someone reaches the point where they would rather risk the unknown than continue living in emotional suppression, their next move is no longer a matter of if, only when. And that, when, is closer than it has ever been. Closer than the quiet would suggest. Closer than the distance implies. Closer than even they expected. Because something in their life is about to happen, something small to the outside world, but deeply personal to them, that will trigger the final emotional breakthrough they need. One moment, one realization, one reminder of what life feels like when something meaningful is left unsaid. And when that moment hits them, they will understand that waiting any longer could cost them the very connection their heart has fought so hard to deny. When that happens, the truth they have carried in silence may finally reach your ears.